Hello and welcome. You're viewing the Citizens Journalist podcast, Mesa County Compass, that brings you the news that you can use from a different point of view. I'm Ruth.
I'm Lisa.
And together we are Mesa County Compass. Our goal is to create an informed, current, active citizenry armed with the facts. We will be covering what's new to you, what it means to you, what you can do about it, and provide you access to the decision makers when we can. All right, welcome to Mesa County Compass this afternoon. We have Janet Rowland, who is running for Mesa County Commissioner. She is currently the commissioner and hoping to carry on for another 4 years. So anyway, let's start out like we do with everyone. Janet, please welcome and let us know a little bit about yourself and why you decided to run again.
Okay, well, and my history is kind of why I ran the first time, and it's why I'm running again. But I worked in the human services field for most of my adult career. I started at the Department of Human Services in Child Protection, and I did investigated allegations of child abuse and neglect. And then in the mid-90s, around the time of welfare reform, I was the volunteer coordinator and was able to set up programs to help people get back to work. And then my last 4 years there, I was a public information officer. And during those 10 years, I realized the impact that the commissioners have on human services. We're one of just less than a dozen states where human services is state-run but county-administered. Most states, it's the state that runs it. Okay. Here, the commissioners sit as the Board of Human Services and oversee it. And it's the largest department in our entire county. It's even larger than the sheriff's office, both in size of staff and in funding. Right. And so it was important to me to have someone on the Board of Commissioners back then that understood human services, and the commissioner in my district was term limited, so I threw my name in the hat and I got it. I served for 8 years and I just loved every moment of it. When I left, I went to work for CASA, Court Appointed Special Advocates, and this is an organization that trains volunteers who become officers of the court, and they are the child's voice in court for cases of child abuse and neglect. And then after that, I went to work for Project 127, actually helped them come from Denver here. It's a faith-based organization that recruits, trains, and supports foster families through the local church. And did that for a couple of years, and then they brought me on as the national director, and so I worked with other states to do that same thing. Then again, this seat was up because of term limits with Rose Puglisi, and again, for the same reason. It's rare that very many Republicans really understand human services. We're more into the business, economic type of things, and I just think it's important to have someone that has conservative principles but understands the human services world.
Okay. What differences have you seen, both good and bad, since the last time you served? What changes have been happening in the county, do you think?
Well, certainly, just in general, our political environment is very toxic. It's very different. You know, when I ran in 2004 and 2008, we didn't even have social media. I didn't get on Facebook until 2009. So it was very much a big difference. And it just seems there's just so much toxicness in the community, and that's unfortunate. I think certainly we've seen with the decrease of oil and gas here in Colorado, thanks to people who want to run it out, our economy is a little bit worse off because of that. Our salaries are lower and our housing is higher, so those are all certainly things that do concern me.
And so how has your job changed since the last time you served? Is it different or is it the same?
It's different and the same. A lot of it is who you serve with, you know, and I've had the privilege of serving with great commissioners, both Craig Meese and Tilly Bishop, Steve Aquafresca in my first 2 terms, and then Scott McInnes and Cody and Bobby have been great. And I think there's always different nuances depending on who you're serving with and kind of what their area of expertise is, what their interest is versus mine. But we have certainly this time made a very conscious effort to be even more transparent than we've ever been. And especially with the social media and all the digital stuff, we can do that. And so we've really pushed to do that, and I think we've done a pretty good job.
I was saying, not only are you needing to do that, but you're really forced to do that because that's what people are looking for now, this transparency.
You know, we only have to post our schedule if 2 or more of the commissioners are together in a meeting. We post our entire schedule. Even if we're not meeting with any of the other commissioners, anybody can look on my schedule and see what I'm doing every day of the week, who I'm meeting with, And so we just feel it's important to be very, very transparent.
Give us where you can find that, just for everybody out there. I know how to do it, and I know Lisa does, but there are others that, well, how do you find it?
Right.
Well, mesacounty.us is our website, and that's the best place to start, probably just searching in there. But I will send you some links that you can post underneath this video. and
Okay.
people can just click.
Perfect. Because I know now I get from your office, I get the schedules of everybody,
The schedule,
which is
you
nice.
can get our agenda, and you'll see
Right,
everything we're going
got
to talk
that.
about. And then we have a newsletter we just started about once every 2 weeks. It comes out with all kinds of information about what we're doing. Our social media pages are very busy. And we also do short reels now of our actual public hearing. So if there's an item that's interesting to folks, like we just did the one for the study on the landfill, there's be a short little reel on that, and you can hear the whole conversation. It's just short and simple.
You have somebody that takes care of that for you
Yes,
because
yes.
you don't have
It's
the
not-
time.
No, I don't.
All righty. Well, you're I can't even talk. Excuse me. You are running as a Republican. How do you define the goals of a Republican county commissioner versus a Democratic county commissioner?
Well, I think the proper role of government is to collectively do for people things they cannot individually do for themselves, right? So we're not going to ask everybody to pave the section of road in front of their home or business, right? Those are the types of things that we're supposed to do. And even with human services, I know a lot of people see that as just the welfare office. It's actually for disability, it's for veterans, it's for elderly getting in nursing homes, those types of things. But I think there is a conservative approach where you're giving people a hand up instead of a hand out. And that's always been very important to me. And I've always looked for innovative solutions to social challenges that empower people rather than make them dependent on the government. That's probably the biggest difference, I think, between Democrats and Republicans.
Okay.
So you would say that a Democrat would be more likely to just say, let's create a program and take care of the person rather than to teach them to fish.
And out of the goodness of their heart, they're well
Right.
intentioned,
No, I'm not saying.
But their focus is a little different. Although I have known some Democrats who see more of the conservative perspective with social issues, but generally speaking, that's where a hand up versus a hand out.
Very good.
Okay, and you've been endorsed by Todd Rowland, who stated Todd, yeah. I make his own name. He no longer has it. I think he'd like this name much better if he just adopted it. And he stated there's been 600 inmates in the county jail, 50% who had mental health issues, and I know this is a big thing for you. And he stated, but working with you collaboratively, you've built a mental health solution, and now the inmate population is under 400. So what specifically is the solution? This is going to be a three-parter. What's the solution you've come up with, and how is that working? Is there less crime than there was before, and are we safer because of these changes?
Those are all really good questions. And it was back in around 2018 or 19 when the jail was up that high, around 600. And if you remember, that was the time the county was talking about having to build a new jail pod at a cost of about $25 million. When I came into office in 2021, I had been hearing on the campaign trail from a lot of folks about the challenges with access to mental health services.
Okay.
So we did a study of our community, we did a community survey, we did 3 focus groups and a roundtable, and we narrowed it down to some things that were really causing challenges. And one of them was that revolving door in our jail and at our hospital emergency rooms. And people who weren't criminals in the sense they weren't criminal minded, but they had a mental health issue, they were off their medication, they had a psychotic episode, somebody gets assaulted and now they get taken to jail. Or they get taken to the emergency room and they don't really have a medical issue, but nobody knows what to do with them or where to take them. And you're right, Sheriff Rowland during that time did an assessment of the jail, and 49% of the inmates were on some type of prescribed medicine. And in fact, during COVID, when it was really hard to be arrested, I mean, you had to be really a threat to the community to be arrested. One individual was arrested 19 times. So that kind of gives you that perspective. And what they said to us is if we had some intensive case management to help these individuals, make sure they get on their meds, that they have their ID, that they can get their Medicaid, that they can get a job, find a place to live. If they had someone to kind of hold their hands, that could stop that revolving door. So we first got a grant from the Office of Behavioral Health for $400,000 and sat down with Brian Johnson, the head of St. Mary's, and Sheriff Rowland to talk about how do we roll this out. And Brian said, this is great, but it's not enough. I'm going to put $300,000 into the pot. Sheriff said, I agree, I'll do the same. He put $300,000 into the pot. So we went from $400,000 to $1 million in about 2.5 minutes. Mm-hmm. And then we didn't use government employees, didn't create a government program. We contracted out to the private sector. So we had businesses and nonprofits that already do case management. And we contracted with them to help them get up and running. And we've seen a significant decrease. So about the time we started, about a year ago, it was around 480 people in the jail. Mm-hmm. And this last time they counted, it was down to 380. So it is working. And I would say we're safer, although a lot of the crimes these individuals committed, again, were crimes just based on the lack of mental health services, right? Having some type of a psychotic break.
So if they do have that, is the choice, this, because I don't know anything about it, mm-hmm. I just listen to your little blurb, is the choice that you can get this intensive help or you will go to jail, or is that not a forced issue?
Usually it works as they're coming out of jail. And so far we found that people are wanting that help. Mm-hmm. So they might get released at 1 o'clock in the morning, and mm-hmm. there's a case manager going to meet them there, pick them up, make sure they have clothes, what they need, the basics. They need to go to court the next day, they'll take them there. Mm-hmm. So it is voluntary. They don't have to participate, but it's as they're coming out of jail or as they're coming out of the emergency room.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm. Well, that makes a lot more sense.
Mm-hmm. It makes a lot of sense, but in that respect, do you think it's working because these people at that particular moment say, oh my goodness, I need help. They get on their meds, and then pretty soon it's gone. And there they are back again.
So far that hasn't happened, and we've interviewed a couple of clients that have just heartbreaking stories, and they talk about this is the first time in their life they've been sober more than a week and that they've had anybody who's actually, cared about them. But I'll give you an example of a situation. So they will have their case manager, and they'll be in and out, with them a couple times a week, whatever they need. There was a case where we have the real-time crime center, and so the cameras were down and saw someone messing around trying to get in some cars. Looked like they were trying to steal a car. Mm-hmm. They looked closer, and someone realized, oh, he's a MAC client. MAC is the name of the program, Multi-Agency Collaboration. Recognized him, and were able to, first they called co-response to come out because it appeared it was someone with mental illness, right? He had no shoes on, one shoe, no shirt. And he wasn't trying to steal a car, he was trying to get warm. He was just looking for a place to get. And they recognized it was a MAC client, and so co-response went out, and then the case manager picked up some clothes and shoes and met him out there and got him what he needed and avoided anybody having to be arrested and go to jail, right? It was really dealing with the situation. So far we're finding that they still do want to stay engaged and have that help.
Good. I'm glad to hear
They're
that.
They're getting employed and housing and doing great.
Mm-hmm. Excellent. Yeah. Excellent.
And where are they finding this housing to go to?
Mm-hmm. So the MAC teams themselves have bought homes and opened them up.
Wow.
So they'll have 6 or 7, 8 rooms set up and let these guys stay there until they're able to get established and get somewhere else.
That is
no
wonderful.
Idea.
It really is.
Yeah,
so kind of like the group home.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then is that voluntary also?
It is.
You can stay with the MAC program, but if you're getting the help, you probably want to stay.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, and this is off script here. So what do you think of this versus the new temporary pavilion that they've built?
When I hear from
effective?
the service providers, the people that provide service to homeless individuals, and we can't lump all homeless into one.
You can't.
Because you have families that are doubled up, staying with families, couch surfing. Mm-hmm. Those are different types of needs than those that are more of the transients that are sleeping in the park. And what I'm hearing from service providers, Catholic Outreach, I think she was even on your show, and she said they don't want the resources, or they would have already gotten them. I do think they come now to get some of the food that's given out and the meals and things like that. I don't want to be critical of the city. I think everybody's trying to do something, but I think this program, actually working one-on-one with case management, that's the most effective.
It seems like it would be.
It sounds like it would work a lot smoother. Mm-hmm. There's a better grasp on the people, if you will, rather than just herding them in like sheep and feeding them and sending them out the door again at night, which is not a good thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Okay, another one I'm going to read on script here.
Okay.
It's a long one. So In an endorsement of the District Attorney Dan Rubenstein, you stated that you have worked closely together for over 20 years, particularly in addressing the intersection of mental health, substance use or disorders, and criminal justice system, with a goal to create a safer, more inclusive community. How is the community safer as a result of this work? Now, will that tie into what you've already given us? And what do you mean by inclusive?
Okay, so to go back to the first question, and Dan and I have worked together for 20 years. Back in the meth task force days, that was the big issue that we had in the 2004 and 5. Right. And we're able to, and we had people, this was an epidemic that like none that we'd ever seen before. And you had young adults from upstanding families who just tried meth once and got hooked and didn't know what to do with it. And so it was Dan's idea to create Summit View treatment, and he had a fast track. So if it was a first-time offense and it was solely based on drug usage and not really a life of crime, they could go to the fast track, go straight into treatment, and if they stayed clean for 2 years, then he dropped all the charges. And we saw a significant decrease in meth here in our community. Now, there still is always going to be people who feel they need some substance to deal with their life, and so they'll pick another drug, and that continues on. Certainly opioids and fentanyl are problems with us now. But what Dan has been really good about is looking at that interface of, are they criminal minded, or are they just, they have an addiction, or they have a mental health issue? And those are just two different ways to treat people, to get, two different ways to get them back on the straight and narrow, which we hope, for everyone. So he's been very involved in this, and he's been even more upstream and looking at diversion. And then of course he started the Lighthouse Project. His wife was a magistrate for a while, and she said she's getting all these delinquent kids, and she said, you're missing it. You need to go upstream and get them when they start to be truant in school. And so that's what he's doing with the Lighthouse Project, is getting the kids before they get into the delinquency behavior, and he's seeing great success in that area too.
So what is the Lighthouse Project?
It's a project under the DA's office that works in partnership with CMU, and they bring these kids in. They have CMU students. They have a funding stream to pay the students, and they mentor them. They tutor them. They get them out to positive activities rather than hanging out with friends and getting into trouble. It's great for the students. Many of them are studying to get into social service type work. And it's great for the youth that are being helped. They just had a big open house last week. I would encourage you to go out there sometime and see it. It's really great what they're doing. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. See, we just live in ignorance.
Well, and that's why we have you on, is so we can learn some of these things. The people don't always know. I mean, you only get so much in any one day, in any one place. We have the Daily Sentinel, which doesn't always give all of the details.
They don't.
Imagine that. Yeah, they haven't. No. And if it is, it's generally negative.
And then you've got the social media, which social media is definitely not the place to get anything that's actually
not
accurate.
No.
That's what scares me, is what's going on, that's going on out there all around that isn't true.
Yeah.
So that's why we have you.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Well, and to get some more details, because if you get a snippet, sometimes it's just very... And I love the ads that are running for you, except sometimes they just seem kind of slick, and you don't get the real depth that when you start describing something, which you can't in a 6-minute thing. So I'm not critical of that. It's just like, oh, that sounds nice. What does that mean?
I know. It is really hard to. In fact, some of my ads, they took a 2.5-minute video and got it down to 37 seconds because that's what people will stop and watch. And it killed me to do that because I wanted to give all the information. So
we were told that too. We were told, you need to put it on a reel, and it needs to be 37 seconds. We can't say anything in 37 seconds.
No, and that has proved wrong in our case because people have become listeners, if you will, and now they're coming to us rather than us going to them. So it is making a difference.
It is.
Yeah.
It really is.
Well, I'm going back. I'm going through all your endorsements. So Scott McGinnis states you hear both sides of an argument, which is a good thing, and are not afraid to make a decision. That would not be me. Good job. How do you determine that you've heard all sides of an issue before you make that decision? And if you're later presented with facts that you went, oh, I didn't have those when I initially made the decision, are you willing to say, after reviewing more things, I think we need to change.
To answer that last part of the question first, absolutely. I reserve the right to become more informed. And if I was presented with information that would have changed my decision, it would be wrong not to do the right thing based on the current knowledge. And that's usually what happens, right? We make a decision based on the information we have.
Right.
You know, we started to go down that route with there was a road out on, I think it was out in Fruta, and it was a small road. And homes and farms, and there were a lot of big trucks that kept coming through, so we got complaints, and we started to do an ordinance, and we were gonna, shut it down, and then we hear from the truckers who live out there and the needs and why they do that, and we realized, okay, well, we were wrong, and so we didn't do that, that
I remember
ordinance.
that very well. My husband was the trucker that was in part of that, would have been in part of that situation. So I understood his side of it. And I saw your side, and I thought, oh, that's not going to work.
Right.
And I was glad that you did go out and reverse that, because that was necessary.
Yeah, we're not above making a mistake and fixing it when we know.
So do you think, though, some decisions are based on, you have that knowledge, but somebody got left out because they didn't know that that decision was even in the works, and they get it later. And this is a city thing, but a friend of mine has a building, and he said, we didn't even know there was the plan for the building that temporary structure until we got a notice. And you could say, well, city council did all of this stuff, and they notified, and they said we're having public hearings. But if you don't know to pay attention, you don't, then you're going, now I'm mad because
and most of us are busy. They're working, taking care of kids, taking care of parents, and they don't have time to just follow the local government and see what they're doing. And that is the most difficult part, because we do all of our decisions in a public hearing, but if people don't know, we're talking about it that day. And so that's why I keep pushing people to sign up for the Sunshine List. That's the one I'll send you the link to. We went from 50 people to now I think we're about 250. I would like to see us have 2,500 people that get that list. So you can just take a quick glance and see what is it that we're working on. I share it on my social media pages. So does Mesa County's social media pages. And we just try and let people know. And if we make a decision and we don't have everybody's input, and then someone finds out and brings it to us, we can reverse it or change things always.
Okay.
Sounds
it's just the need to be informed. And if people don't know where to go, that's what we're here for, is to tell them where to go. So we'll be glad to get that list and send it on.
Yes, thank you.
And I know it came out in a letter too, because I got that, and you had a little
with the tax bills.
Yes,
we
yes.
sent it out. Yeah, we got quite a few from there too. So
Most people in 513, and that's on them.
Yeah, it is.
It makes it tough too.
It really does. It really does.
And then there's the lack of trust. So then they think, well, they're not responsive. And even I know that I thought, man, I didn't even know you were doing the little round tables, speed. Like it's not speed dating, but
speed networking.
Yes, And I thought, no, I don't know how you can make yourself do that more. Because even when I look at the paper, it's kind of sporadic. I go, okay, I'm really busy today. I've got this. So out it goes. So
Life
you don't
gets
even
in
know
the
the
way.
negative that might be going on.
You
that you need
subscribe
to
to the paper?
I do not. I do not. My neighbor subscribes to the paper, and she gives it to me. Yes. No, I don't.
Sorry.
That is fine.
Okay, I'm going to ask you then. Is the county attorney the only outside resource used for the commissioners for legal issues?
Well, he's the main source, but he often subcontracts with other attorneys who have expertise in specific areas that he doesn't. In particular, we do that a lot with some of the cases from the jail. We get a lot of lawsuits from the jail, and we work with an attorney who's an expert in that area. But certainly the county attorney is our main attorney. We hire 3 people. That's all. We hire the county attorney, the county administrator, and the director of human services. Those are our 3 direct reports, and then they hire everybody else along with the elected officials. They hire their staff.
All right.
Yeah.
And what is your take on the escalating issue with the unhoused population in Mesa County, and what solutions do you see? Because it can be, it feels like a city thing, but the county, it spills over and it affects people that live in the county also live in the city. So how does the county interact with that, and what do you see as maybe some solutions?
Like the upcoming tent city, if it does take place, is going to more than likely be in the county rather than in the city.
Well, the challenge is, and the reason most of this happens in the city is that's where the service providers are.
Right.
You go through Clifton, you might see 1 or 2, maybe 3 people panhandling at a different intersection because there's no services there. Then they'd have to go 5 or 6 miles back into town to go to the soup kitchen to get a meal or stay at the shelter or those types of things. And so we don't have that now. And our sheriff is just very strong on, he's going to get on top of those camps right away. As soon as someone tells us there's a camp, as soon as we see there's a camp, they're going to go in, and we do it very humanely. We have the therapists that are co-response team, and that's where you have a therapist and a deputy that go out together, and they handle the mental health calls. They go out and meet all the people in the camp. They offer them resources, help. Like I said, well, you need a Medicaid card, medicine, you need a job, what is it you need? Those who want help, they get the help, and those who don't, they have 5-6 days to get their stuff out, and then the sheriff cleans everything up after that. And then they stay on it. If they go down a couple of blocks and start a new one, they're going to keep at them. And those that don't really want the help, if you keep doing that and pushing them out, they'll eventually go to another community. And most of them aren't from our community. They've come from other areas. So I think staying on top of it and offering resources to people who need it, that's really all you can do, right? Offer them help if they want it. Yeah.
Very good.
Exactly. So now then, kind of in the same vein but a little bit different, how do you think of a solution to affordable housing? That seems to be our biggie. Well, it's the biggie in the state of Colorado and all over the nation as far as that goes. But our housing has just been outrageous as of late, and it's not getting any better. The rents are going higher. Even those that are subsidized rents are just skyrocketing.
Part of the challenge is we have people moving here from other communities like California, where they sell their home for $1.5 million, and they come out here and they pay cash more than they're asking, and that started driving up the prices. My son lives in Oklahoma, and I get Zillow emails showing houses in his area and in Grand Junction, and night and day. $375,000 brand new construction on a half an acre, and here's one built in 1978 that looks like it needs painting. It doesn't even have a garage. It's just really very, very frustrating. Young people, I don't know how they do it. The part that I don't believe Mesa County government shouldn't be subsidizing housing, shouldn't be a landlord. But I think our role is to streamline the building process to make it as cheap as possible, because time is money. And so if it drags on because it's stuck in our planning or it's waiting for a building inspection, every day is interest they're paying on that, and that goes directly to the cost of the housing. Also the fees back in 2008 when the energy industry left and everything had tanked, we eliminated all of our fees in our planning department because we wanted to encourage people to build, and we have not brought them back since then. So that's been for 15 years we haven't had those fees.
Whatever you've lost, though, the city's picked up.
Well, that's
the problem.
true, and I guess they can build in Mesa County. One of the big fees is the transportation impact fee, or a TIF. And ours is the lowest in the county, and the other municipalities it's quite a bit more, and they're pushing us to raise ours, and we just won't do it. We want to keep it as low as possible because all those costs just get put on the back of the home buyer.
True. Yes.
Yeah.
And it may be that, if you can't find a house that you can afford, you might not be able to live here. I mean, it's a little bit like Basalt or Aspen and saying, we'd love to have you have a house, but you might have to look elsewhere.
Or maybe rethink what a starter home is, right? And there are some builders who are starting to get creative. Not everyone needs 2,000 square feet, right? Could you not do with 1,100 square feet? Maybe 800 square feet? Maybe you have a carport instead of a garage, just different things.
Good idea.
So, yeah.
Which really, most people don't need a garage anyway, because you know where their car sits.
In the driveway, because all their stuff's in their
garage.
garage.
In their garage. And a storage unit, if you will.
Right.
So it's very interesting, the things that go on in the housing community, the differences. But 500, 600 square feet isn't too bad for a family of 3. It really isn't.
500 or 600 square feet for a family of 3?
Yes. I've lived in 550 with a family of 4 for several years. And it worked out fine. We had well, we just made do, you know,
Right.
and it worked.
Some of the micro homes, the way they're laid out, are really nice.
They're really nice. They're very convenient
Efficient
and efficient. Yes.
Yeah.
You oversee many boards in the county, and you had a problem with one of the boards. What do you do when you see a board going in a different direction than what the values of the community are, and what control do you have over them?
Yeah, it's not easy, and we do appoint 31 different boards, and some we have more control over than others. Probably the two bigger ones that we appoint is the Board of Health and then the Library Board, but there are many others. The Airport Authority Board, we appoint half, the city appoints half, and we try and stay out of their business, right, and let them do what needs to happen unless someone raises a concern. The Board of Health, I think, is the example you were thinking of, and that one is actually a department of Mesa County, and so we have different responsibilities for the oversight of their finances. And so when we learned that the director had paid one consultant $481,000 without going out to bid and without a legal contract, we and the entire Board of Health felt that we needed to do an audit. And so we did, to see was that an isolated incident or part of a bigger picture.
Right.
Well, it turns out it was not isolated. And in fact, over the 4-year time period of that audit, $23.8 million had been spent either without a bid, without a contract, or both. And we felt very strongly that, that just says to all of our other department heads, you don't have to follow the rules. You don't have to worry about how you spend the tax dollars. And we couldn't do that. We felt that he needed to be let go, and they disagreed. And they're good people. I've known most of them for many years, but we had a difference of agreement, and we felt that we had a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayers of Mesa County. And so we just appointed a new Board of Health.
And it took months for you to be
did.
able to say anything about it, too.
It did, yeah.
So it was a rough time.
It was a very rough time.
Really
Very
rough. Okay.
Well, so how do you find out about what's going on with these entities? How do you find out these little discrepancies?
Yeah, this one came up to us accidentally, and we were on a Zoom call talking about new market tax credits, and Cody noticed a woman there he hadn't seen before and asked who she was, and I knew she'd been doing consulting with Jeff for early childhood stuff. And Cody wanted to know what's the terms of her contract. And that's when Pete took a look and said, well, she doesn't actually have a contract. It didn't go out to bid, and it was $481,000. So that kind of came accidentally. That made us realize we need something in place to kind of be doing more random checks and balances. We do audits, but they audit different programs every year, and they don't get into the minutia. And plus, also, the way the health department was putting things in, you wouldn't have known, because this consultant was listed as other operating supplies. So how, right? And anything over $50,000 has to come to the commissioners in a public hearing so everybody can know what's being done. Well, he doled it out in $10,000 increments every month, so it never rose to that level. And there was nobody watching to see, has this person been paid, more than $50,000. So we've got a new finance system that's going to solve some of that. We've added some duties on to one of our staff to be a compliance manager, to start going around. I mean, trust but verify, right? We have a lot of great employees. I trust them, but we just need to make sure everything's as it should be.
All it takes is just one little slip.
It does, yeah.
And then you start covering, and then it goes and expands and blows out of proportion. Whereas maybe you could stop it before it ever got started, was the only thing that I was thinking about that.
That's what we hope to do.
Right.
Well, how do you know, just overall, because the Department of Human Services is a huge department, do you ever just randomly go in and instead of, because one of the things that I've seen in different places where I've worked is that they announce so-and-so's coming and everybody gets everything cleaned up, and then it all looks very good because they turn over a report and they say, oh, this is all wonderful. But the problem is sometimes it's just not seeing what really is happening in that.
Yeah.
Do you do that?
We pop into lots of different departments at different times, not necessarily to audit them, but just to kind of pop in and see what's going on, certainly. And we make a point to get to every department, all three of us, at least once a year.
Nice.
Now, those are going to be more scheduled, but we'll go to one of their team meetings and just kind of sit in and see what's going on. We learn a lot about what's happening, what some of the challenges are. Now, of course, that is prepared, so so it's not the drop-in thing, but we do some of that as well. And we rely on our employees and our customers to let us know when something's not working.
Now, that would be something I was thinking along the same lines as like the school board now pops in here and there, and they have caught a lot of those really weird circumstances that to them is weird, to the people that are going through it is very much everyday stuff. So, that's one thing. I know there's only 3 of you, and Mesa County is huge to try to do that with, but maybe a couple of unscheduled stops occasionally may not hurt.
We do, and we really do have good staff. I don't want it to sound like we don't trust them. We really do. And unlike schools where kids may not want to speak up, people have no problem calling or emailing me when they have a problem with one of our departments.
Good.
And we're just about to put up some real large signs with QR codes in all of our front-facing departments. So when people come in, they can scan the code and they can tell us how their visit went. Real simple like that. So we're trying to make it easy for people to give us feedback.
So, what is the role of state government in the important issues facing Mesa County?
So the counties only have the authority that the state has given us, either through the Constitution or statute. And so there are some counties who have become a home rule county, and they have a little bit more control over some things, but still we're limited to the state constitution and statute in terms of what we can do. So we have to work with them. We have many good partners at the state in various different departments. Human Services is one where I already mentioned that it's state run but county administered, so we work very closely with them. But that wouldn't be the case, say, for landfill or the building department or planning department. Those are just our departments and we run them. But they certainly have a lot of impact on what we can and cannot do.
Interesting. Okay, on that note, what would be the ramifications as us becoming a home rule county?
Would that be good for us or not?
I mean, it could be. I think we'd have to sit down and really look at what is it you want to do differently than we already can. And it would be a long process, and it requires a committee of the community that actually has to be elected, and then those elected committee members then draft the charter for the home rule, and that has to be voted on. So it's about a 2 or 3 year process by the time you get through all of that. I know a couple of counties that are not sure that they have a lot more flexibility than we do. It's always something worth looking at, just as people have wanted to look at 5 commissioners, which you could do with or without home rule. But I think we would first want to determine what is it that we can't do now that we want to do, and see if that's even possible as a home rule. And then if it is, then you could go down that path.
Right. That's kind of the curiosity I was having, because I hear the same signals. 5 commissioners, because the county has grown. There's things that has happened that need the extra attention, and yet that's another $200,000 that you're going to have to put out of pocket to pay these, and will it benefit that much?
Right. And I can argue that one both ways. I think it would be nice to have 2 other commissioners. You'd have different perspectives when you're talking about a problem, different ideas for solutions. It would also allow us to talk to one other commissioner about an issue without having to be in a public meeting. Right now, 2 of us is a majority, so we can't do that. If we had 5, we could.
Okay.
That would be nice. I did a little unscientific poll of about 30 people that I knew. I just texted them about the time this came up. These are Democrats, Republicans, unaffiliated, very engaged, not engaged at all. And about a third said, yeah, I think that'd be a good idea. And a third said, I don't have a clue. And another third said, why would you do that? Like, what problem are you trying to solve?
Right.
So I don't know even what the voters would want. We put it on the ballot in 2008. And it lost by 67%. So whether or not...
And that was 2008, though. Things were a lot different in the county in 2008 than they are in 2024. So maybe it might be worth revisiting.
Yeah, we're just, we've said if the citizens want it, just come forward and tell us. So far, they really haven't. So
Maybe they didn't know it was an option.
Maybe not.
Well, I'd say no. I think we're doing fine. I think we should work those commissioners to death. I'm good with it.
Right, and I would be one to look at it all, because I think that many times you guys are way in over your heads. You can't possibly provide a solution for everything that needs to have it. So I'm thinking that maybe that would lighten your load and things could be a lot more efficient. I don't know. Just a thought.
We have staff also who have ideas and help us come up with some creative solutions. And even the citizens, oftentimes they'll come with the problem and they'll have a solution too. And so we're able to just move forward with that. So,
Okay,
yeah.
very good. Okay.
But see both sides, right?
Yeah. The no. You come and say money, I'm just going,
Right.
Right, but then on the other hand, a little bit of money spent sometimes is more
I
efficient.
know.
Yeah,
So,
in the scope of a couple $100,000 in the scope of a $200 million budget, is that too
Right.
much, right?
right.
Right. Okay.
Yep.
Fine, you guys. Keep your opinions to
Although
yourself.
that would also get you 2 sheriff deputies too. So,
Hey.
which would you rather have,
I'd rather have-
politicians or
yes.
cops?
At this point, cops.
Yeah, same here.
So this is going back to the state, because I know we've talked about that before, and I think even the other people running do not understand how strong the state is. And you can write all of the letters you want and say, I'm going to bother, but you're still going to end up doing what they say. And so how will you fight for our values if there's a conflict between Mesa County and the state? And Ruth came up with the issues like oil and gas, where, you know, over on the, especially Governor Polis comes up with these ideas, and I'm like, it just hurts the economy. I don't think you're looking, it looks good on paper. Like Colorado is one of the states that are looking at having 85% of the cars be electric by the year 2032. And you don't have the grid. It's not green because you're doing all this. So is there any way for the county to say, you know, you can do that over there on your side, but over here, we don't want to do that.
There's that mountain that is a division.
Yeah.
We are rural. We still remain rural, and we will. Denver's not so much. Denver, Boulder,
Well,
Colorado
and
Springs,
you know, there's a
everything.
number of issues like that, or you know, we're not allowing oil and gas because that hurts the environment, and the EPA will come in, and you can't do this, and you can't. Is there any way for
Sometimes,
back?
if within statute or the Constitution, they have clearly overstepped their authority, you know, we can sue, and we have in the past.
Good.
Sometimes successfully, sometimes not, but we have and we will. It's very frustrating because the Democrats have nearly a supermajority in both the House and the Senate, and so
and the governor,
right,
So you've got it all.
and they're not even listening to even our Republican representatives over there are often just being ignored. Get a few minutes to talk in a debate about a bill, and then they just move on. So it's very frustrating. We need to help our friends in the other part of the state elect more Republicans.
It's true.
Right. Okay, so how can we influence how can we limit the influence of the eastern slope onto the western slope? And would you ever turn down government funding because there are strings attached?
Oh, absolutely. To the second question, if there were strings attached that we didn't like, we absolutely would turn down the funding. That's not even a question. The influence of, I mean, we're a state, right? People can come here. We can't, not going to put a wall at the border of Mesa County.
That is a thought.
Good. So, yeah, it's hard. I think we need to, I don't know what the answer to that is, truthfully. Just continue to elect as many conservatives as we can here so that the things we do have control over, at least we can control those, and push back as much as we can on state issues we don't agree with.
And the funding we can turn down if it isn't something that we
That's good for
can
us.
agree. Yeah,
Yeah.
good. Yeah,
There are
that is
times you
actually
can say
something
that's not
for us.
good for us, and recognizing that. And I appreciate the fact that you're willing to do that because there are
absolutely.
things that just aren't.
It's not worth it, the money.
Now this one is philosophical.
Okay.
So, yeah, the state can exert tremendous power for good in the affairs of mankind, but it also has the potential to become the most abusive of all social structures. The state, and we're talking federal, state, and local, has increasingly taken on responsibilities that should be handled by the church, by family, by labor, all of those different sectors, and they come in and say, oh, we want to tell you what kind of car you can drive. We want to tell you where you can live. We want to tell you, we want you all closer together. So how can we prevent this at the local level?
Well, again, at the local level, if you elect conservatives, that will help, because we have a different perspective on government. That government should provide the basic infrastructure and public safety, and then get out of the way and let people live their lives. And right now, all of our electeds in the county are of that mindset, and so we're very fortunate. And we just have to continue to do that. The state and national level is
beyond your
yes,
pay
it
grade.
is. Some days it's just beyond my ability to even comprehend. It's just so overwhelming, It really is. It's unfortunate.
And it's hard to continue to serve when you get this, like, I feel like I'm losing ground all the time, just pushing back and trying to stay true to what you believe. And I know it just over and over put up with a lot of abuse. And people being negative and not understanding and just saying, well, they're out of touch. They're doing this.
Yeah.
It's them.
As I've been calling delegates, I've noticed too a trend of the issues that bother people most are federal and state issues. And they don't even realize that I have no control over that. It's the mail-in ballots that came up. Well, this is state statute that everybody has to send out the ballots via mail. I can't stop that, right? The roundabouts, people don't like them. It's usually CDOT or the city, mostly CDOT. So, there's just certain things but the things that frustrate people are on that federal and state level.
And yet you get the guff for it.
Which is okay. That's all right. They can vent. It's fine.
Speaking of venting and all that kind of stuff, what are your specific goals for this next term?
Well, I want to finish what we've started in the area of mental health and criminal justice system. We're just getting started there. We have a lot more to do. I talked about the MAC teams, which work with those individuals. We're going to do a MAC Junior, which is going to work with kids. We have kids in the school that have some serious behavioral issues. And then we're going to do a MAC Senior for the elderly. What they found as they've been going out is there's a lot of issues with elderly. They're not criminal minded, but they're getting arrested. For example, a husband and a wife, and he has dementia, and he ended up assaulting her. So they've been married 65 years. There's no domestic violence, but now all of a sudden he's being charged with domestic violence, and he's not a criminal. He has dementia, and he needs help and support. So we're working to build MAC Junior and MAC Senior. I think we can make some good headway in the next 4 years. And then my vision for Mesa County is that people can find a good job, and that employers can find good employees. And we do a lot of that through our workforce center and making sure that we'll listen to the needs of the businesses and start training programs for the types of workforce that they need, certification, do a lot of work with the CMU in that area. And then the housing issue, and I think, again, our role there is to streamline the process and keep our fees down. And I just want to do more of that in the next 4 years.
Do you have any specific goals for bringing in any kind of an industry or any kind of a job force that will employ people at a decent pay level?
Well, we have a lot of partners that work in that area of bringing in or expanding businesses. We have the Business Incubator, which I love, and they do so much to help businesses get started and incubate, and in 5 years they move on. We have the Chamber that does a lot to keep the businesses here and advocate for them and what their needs are. And then we have GJEP that does a lot to bring in those new businesses. What we're going to be focused on this next year is looking to do more in unincorporated Mesa County, because a lot of the effort goes into the cities, municipalities. But we have a huge area in Clifton, Fruitvale, Palisade, and there's about 20,000 people that live there. And I think last time I saw 4,500 jobs. So everybody's driving the other end of town. If we had more jobs there, it would help with transportation. And then if Clifton ever decided they wanted to incorporate and be their own city, they would have a tax base to do it. Right now, it's just not there because there's not enough businesses and good businesses. So we're really focused on encouraging people to grow and build businesses out there. When we get that BLM parcel at the end of 32 Road and I-70, about 28 acres, our hope is to get some businesses out there, a little business park.
Okay,
So that's what we're
that's
working on.
interesting.
Yeah.
That would be interesting. What say do the county commissioners have over the airport authority?
Well, it's got 7 board members. We appoint 3, the city appoints 3, and those 6 individuals appoint the 7th one.
Okay.
And Cody Davis is one of our 3 appointees, and then the city also has a city council member on as one of theirs. So we're tightly involved, and we meet with them about once or twice a year just to get updates on what's going on.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's something that we need desperately is a better airport service. It's so expensive to go anywhere from here. Of course, it's expensive to go anywhere from here anyway, but the air flights are just outrageous, except for the new one that just came in that's doing the hop from here to California and back. But how long will that last? Who knows?
And a lot of that is just, it's right, the free market, right? And if the airlines don't want to come, or the airlines say this is what we need to charge. Now in Montrose, they're able to keep their fees a little bit down, but that's because it's subsidized and they're guaranteed to have so many seats. Telluride does that because they want to make sure they have that access. And I don't think that's our role, right, to subsidize the airlines. And so it's kind of the natural consequence of a free market. Although during COVID, we were getting tickets to Oklahoma City round trip for $180, $240. Those were the
made a
good
lot of
old
difference.
days. Those were the good old days. Yeah.
Good old days.
COVID time, good old days.
It
Well,
was the silver lining. How's that?
There you go.
I could go
All
see
right.
my granddaughters for a couple $100.
Yeah, there you go. Well, you've been watching Mesa County Compass. This is the facts as we see them, the truth as we know it. You decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Janet.
Thanks for having me.